Random thoughts. In this video, we are going to talk about a theory regarding the Oromo people that became very popular in the 19th century. But this is a theory that has its origins in the 17th century. It's the theory that the Oromo people are the lost white men or lost white people. Now, I went looking around and I read a few documents. Some of them can be very controversial if I'm going to share them. But the general idea is that the Oromo people, their ancestors were white people, and they came into the land that is between northern Kenya and southern Ethiopia, and they settled there. And then over some time, of course, the population grew, and then they moved, of course, to the north, and then they've grown to become one of the largest tribes in East Africa. Now, this story of the Oromo being white lost people is tied to the name that they used to be called sometime in the back, a name that has become a little bit not well accepted, especially by the people of the Oromo, and it's understandable. But it's also tied to how they look or how they looked to the people who came to Ethiopia. Now, the earliest document I found that talks about the Oromo people and brings up this theory of the Oromo people being people of Caucasian origin who came to the land we know today as Ethiopia and northern Kenya, is a book that was written by a Jesuit who went by the name Balthazar Telles. This is a book that is titled The General History of Upper Ethiopia. Now, Balthazar Telles, as I've said, was a Jesuit. And Jesuits, of course, it's an organization within the Catholic Church. And he writes this document that I've taken a moment to go through. And this document was published in 1710. And this document was published, I can say, probably 35 years after the death of Telles, a long time. It took a while for the book to be published or the document to be made public. And in this document, it talks about going to Ethiopia and traveling in Ethiopia and staying in Ethiopia for a while and learning about the people, the culture, the society in general. And then it talks about different people. It talks about the Tigray kingdom. It talks about the Amhara kingdom. It talks about different monarchies that existed then. And then, of course, the overall monarchy. Now, he also, of course, talks now about different people, and that's where he talks about the Oromo people. And he says that, and I'm going to quote, and they were called milk to denote they were white. So that's what he says. And of course, yeah, he explains other things about the people. Now, other people picked up this theory later on, including somebody who goes by the name Sir Clements Robert Markham, who wrote a book that was published in 1923. The book is titled A History of the Abyssinian Expedition. He uses Balthazar Telles' document to push this narrative of the Oromo being descendants of a group of white people, and he says white men, who came and settled in the land that is, of course, the land we know today as Kenya and Ethiopia. That those countries did not exist until, of course, very recently. And these people settled there, and then they, of course, grow in numbers. And then, of course, later on, they move up north, and then they've grown to become this big population. But, of course, this is just a theory. I need to clarify that. Of course, the general understood story is that the Oromo are closely related to the Somali people, and they come from the same origin, and then the Somali moved and the Oromo moved. That is how it's generally understood to be. But I just wanted to bring up this theory that at some point became very popular, especially amongst European historians in the 19th century, especially German, for some weird reason, got so interested in the Oromo, and they saw Oromos as part of the European stock. And then here is another interesting part. They decided that the name that was used to describe the Oromo people came from the name that is used for the Gauls. The Gauls, this is a French tribe, and then they say the Oromo were very warlike, like the Gauls were very warlike, and they say these two were related. And that's a very interesting linking of two tribes that are very far apart. So there was a time, especially in the 18th, 19th centuries, that the Oromo people, or some people thought seriously that the Oromo people are descendants of some white men, we can say, who got, for some reasons, who came to East Africa and settled. Those are my random thoughts.